Hey, welcome back, Cozy Community. And speaking of Cozy Community, are you subscribed to my newsletter? I'm going to have the links down below to do that. And anyone who is a member of my newsletter gets a monthly, just a little note from me, and I give you sneak peeks to everything that's going on, including the next story. Sometimes there's recipes, sometimes there's pictures of my pooches, and it's just a lot of fun. And I always include some links to books that you might enjoy, mostly mysteries, but other clean genres as well. So if you want to become a member of my Cozy Community email group, I would love it. And like I said, the information is in the description. All right, we're going to continue today a history of murder. We're on chapter 16, and I'd just like to give a little shout out. I had heard from several of you that my camera angle was not good, and I agreed, but hearing your feedback really prompted me to get myself organized, and I'm trying a different camera angle. If it's better, if you like it more, would you please let me know and maybe give me a thumbs up in the video? I would appreciate that. All right, so let's move on. Today we're reading Elevate and Educate. This is chapter 16, and you guys, this is one of my favorite chapters. Last chapter, remember, Garner came in. He and Chloe had kind of a little tiff because he told her he was in charge of the investigation and she needed to stay out of it. He also said something that made Chloe think that maybe he knows something about Nancy, and that makes her nervous. And she tries to warn Grandma right before the Poison Pen book club meeting. And this is where we're going to come in here. All right. Chapter 16, Elevate and Educate. Grandma Lily ignored my warning. Instead, she pursed her lips and then calmly lifted the tea tray with its contents perfectly arranged on white paper doilies. She raised her head high and went towards the parlor where the chief of police sat. I followed and watched her place the tray on the tea cart. Then, without hesitating, she went to open the front door. On cue, a short, stubby man came in. He wore round glasses and a tweed vest, making him seem scholarly. "Good evening, Lily. Thank you for allowing us in tonight. I'm very sorry." My grandmother gave him a soft smile and slight nod. "Thank you, Leonard. As I've told Bree, Art would have wanted us to be together. Well, it must be a terrible loss." "Thank you, Leonard. Here, I'd like to introduce you to Chloe, my granddaughter." He stepped up and shook my hand gently. "I'm Leonard Dunning. Your grandmother has told me all about you." Grandma Lily beamed. "Dr. Dunning is a history professor at Lakeview Community College." The city of Lakeview was 30 miles north of Jericho Falls. Once just another mining town, the interstate highway caused Lakeview to swell into a full-fledged city. "It's a pleasure to meet you," I said to Dr. Dunning. "How nice of you to come all this way for the meeting." "My sister Anna started the club," he smiled. "At first, I was only intending to humor her, but I've come to enjoy it." "How long have you taught at LCC?" "Almost 10 years, he explained. "I've watched the school grow and change a lot in that time. We've earned several prestigious awards recently." "How nice," I said. "Your grandmother tells me you intended to study history." "Yes. I haven't made it to college yet, though. Maybe someday." "It's never too late," he said cheerfully. I smiled at the thought that my dream could come true, and Dr. Dunning didn't seem concerned that I hadn't gone straight to college. Maybe there was still time. The door opened up again, and Bree, along with 2 other women, stepped in. Bree had changed into a pair of white capri pants and a purple peasant top. I didn't recognize the other 2 women, one middle-aged and one elderly. One of them must be Dr. Dunning's sister. Bree bounced over to my grandma and put a hand on each of her cheeks. "You've been crying a lot," she said loud enough for the entire room to hear, "so I stopped by the salon to get you something." I rolled my eyes and then hoped no one noticed. She reached into her purple polka dot tote bag, which seemed to contain everything but the salon sink. She held a package of tissues, a half-eaten granola bar, a notepad, and 2 tubes of lipstick in one hand, while the other continued rummaging. Finally, she came up with a small vial of moisturizer. "Found it," she announced. "Rub this around your eyes before bed, and you won't have an ounce of puffiness in the morning. I swear by it. I never have bags or circles around my eyes." The middle-aged woman guffawed. "You're 20, Bree. It doesn't matter what you use or don't use. You wouldn't have puffy eyes." I couldn't tell whether the woman was trying to be funny or insulting. Either way, Bree looked hurt. "I'm 26, she said indignantly. Grandma Lily took the small container from Bree. "Thank you, dear." She put a hand on Bree's shoulder. The elderly woman patted the seat next to her on the couch and spoke to me. "Chloe, come here. I haven't seen you in ages." I sat beside her and caught a familiar scent of cinnamon. Could it be Mrs. Little? She had been my Sunday school teacher. Wow, we thought she was ancient when we were little kids. She must be in her 90s by now, but still chewing that big red gum. "Oh gosh, you're all grown up. Please call me Karen." I sat beside her and shook her hand. "Okay, Karen, it's great to see you again. You enjoy reading mysteries, I take it?" "Romantic mysteries, mostly. Sometimes this group resents my racy title suggestions, especially when we read aloud." She laughed. I felt my cheeks get warm. Chief Garner sitting there as she talked about spicy romance novels made me feel self-conscious. "Don't worry, though. Tonight we're discussing one of Anna's favorites." Karen lowered her voice and put a hand over her mouth. "Anna likes highbrow classics, which simply means they're hard to understand and rather heavy on boring descriptions. Oh, Leonard pretends to get them, of course." Karen tilted her head subtly toward the middle-aged woman who had embarrassed Bree. She was pencil-thin, with a dark, short bob and black-framed glasses. To me, she resembled a real-life olive oil. She had several books stacked on her lap and sat perfectly erect in a high-back chair near the window. It was hard to believe that she was a sibling to the portly and cheerful Dr. Dunning. "Do you read mysteries, Chloe?" Anna asked when she caught me looking at her. "Occasionally," I said. "Some of us enjoy the genre because of its deepest meanings, such as justice being served, or the sense of heroism attained by the sleuth and therefore the reader." Anna looked at Karen and lifted one eyebrow. "Others prefer base nonsense full of tropes and outlandish plots that could be written by a teenager." Karen sighed. Don't get on your retired English teacher high horse yet, Anna. We haven't even started." "I'm only attempting to explain that literature's goal should be to elevate and educate," Anna replied. "My goal is to have some fun before I kick the bucket," Karen said wryly. Anna rolled her eyes and sighed. I stifled a laugh. "With all that Lily has been through today, I think we should get started so we aren't here too late," Dr. Dunning said. He was clearly trying to break the tension between these two ladies who seemed to love bickering. In her signature style, Bree bounced onto the couch cushion next to mine. "Does anyone mind if I join tonight?" I asked the group. "Of course not." Karen patted my hand. "You should stay as our special guest." "It's all right with me," said Dr. Dunning. "What do you say, Anna? It's your selection we're discussing." Anna looked me up and down as if she was studying a show dog. "I see no reason not to allow it." "Garner?" Dr. Dunning said, looking in the chief's direction. I found it interesting that the others had sat in a semicircular arrangement, while Chief Garner was off by himself in a wingback chair near the fireplace. One ankle was crossed over the opposite knee as he lounged comfortably. He nodded in agreement, but said nothing. Suddenly, Grandma spoke. "Good. Chloe will stay in my place. Things have taken quite a toll on me. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to rest." Our eyes met. She was wise. If she was absent, I was more likely to get them to open up, to theorize. That is, if Chief Garner didn't interfere. I gave her a tiny nod and a smile. She waved graciously to the room and went upstairs. When she had gone, Bree leaned forward and quietly said, "How is she doing?" I looked around at everyone, considering how much to say. "She's doing all right." Such a terrible thing to happen. Karen pursed her lips. "Chief Garner is working on the case," I said, glancing in his direction. "Of course," Dr. Dunning nodded. In an odd coincidence of timing, Chief Garner's cell phone began to ring. "Excuse me, I need to take this. It's Officer Porter," he said. Garner left the parlor and went into the foyer for privacy. "Chloe," Karen whispered in his absence, "please know that Chief Garner could never suspect your grandmother was involved. Regardless of how it may look. He's known her for years. We all have." "He must follow the evidence," Dr. Dunning remarked. The unsavory fact that Grandma's ribbon was found on the body must have made it into the town rumor mill. Bree folded her arms in a huff. "He just can't. It would be like investigating his own grandmother." Anna coughed ceremoniously. "Chief Garner has been a police officer for many years, and I'm sure he's seen people who you'd least expect pushed to commit murder. Hopefully, Lily Martin doesn't fall into that category." Bree gasped and glared. "How dare you say that?" I had to agree with Bree. How dare she? Suddenly, Chief Garner came into the room, still talking on his phone. "Hold off on doing anything until I get there." He rushed to collect his book from the wingback chair. "Sorry, everyone, but I need to go." "I wonder what that's all about," Karen said. "I don't know, but I think it's Officer Porter who suspects Grandma Lily," I told them. "Chief Garner is in charge, not her." Karen patted my knee. "Do they have any other suspects?" "They're still investigating." I hesitated to say more. I knew I needed this group's input, but it was a small town, and any of them could be connected to the people I considered suspects. I felt like a tightrope walker about to leave her platform. "I wish we could help." Karen shook her head. "Maybe you can," I said. "If this were a murder mystery story, who would you suspect?" I looked around the room at each of them. Bree spoke first. "What about William Weston? He's been pining away for Lily for years." "He came by Jericho House today," I told her. "He wanted to see Grandma Lily, but she hid from him." Bree gasped and put her hand to her chest, as if this singular detail proved Weston's guilt. Anna exhaled loudly and rolled her eyes. "William is on the high side of 80. Do you actually propose that he would have the strength to manhandle Art?" "Anna," Karen scolded, "don't be so quick to insult the aged. William is a tough old bird just like me. I bet I could do a number on someone myself." "So we can't rule him out?" I asked. Everyone shook their heads except Anna. We sat in silence for a moment, each contemplating the situation. "Wait a minute," said Bree. "If Lily killed Art, why would she use her own ribbon and leave it at the scene? That's ridiculous. It's more likely the real killer planted it for the police to find. Remember, it's like in the book we read last year. The killer wore her best friend's lipstick so her shade would be found on the victim." Bree was right. Someone hoping to get away with murder didn't leave such obvious evidence behind. I'd been so worried about the ribbon making Grandma appear guilty, I hadn't seen it for what it really was. Whoever did this was trying to frame Grandma Lily. Anna cleared her throat yet again to show her superiority. "The purpose of this group isn't to speculate on real murder cases, but to study literary mystery. Shall we proceed, please?" Karen gave me a look of disgust, but said nothing. "I want to thank you for your concern about my grandma. You're a good friend," I said. Anna began leading a discussion on A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. An hour later, Dr. Dunning was breaking up the third squabble between Anna and Karen by clapping his hands. "You two are making the same point," he said, at his wit's end. "Can't you listen to one another long enough to realize it?" I snickered to myself. Karen and Anna could argue about whether or not they were arguing. Anna pointed her finger at Karen. "Maybe so, but if she uses the word boring one more time..." "All right, that's enough for tonight," Dr. Dunning interrupted his sister. "Let's continue this discussion next week. Maybe Chief Garner will be able to help sort it out." "And he knows self-defense in case a fight breaks out," Bree whispered to me. This made me laugh. While the guests packed up their things, I gathered Wedgwood teacups from various spots around the room. Dr. Dunning came over. "I'm glad you stayed. You had some great insights on setting." I thanked him. I'd always loved the story, especially since a portion of it took place in the American West. I like to imagine it was a place like Jericho Falls. "What I didn't get a chance to tell you earlier," he said, "is that I'm on the History Department's Scholarship Committee. I'm short on applicants this year and would love for you to apply." I raised my eyebrows. "I've been out of school for a long time now." "That's all right. We have students of all ages at LCC. Plus, I know your grandmother would be glad to have you back around." "Maybe I'll think about it," I said. "Wonderful." Dr. Dunning pulled a business card from his vest pocket. "Contact me and I'll email you the information." I said goodnight to everyone and locked the front door, resting my back against it. I took a deep breath. Starting college sounded too good to be true. Starting a new life in Jericho Falls sounded impossible. The two of them together? Crazy. All right, thank you everyone for joining me again for Chapter 16 of A History of Murder. We will continue next week with Chapter 17, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.